Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to address something that's come up in all the deadlift videos I put up. Very recently I put up 3 different deadlift videos in 3 different days because I pull 3 days a week. And several of the questions that have been asked is, how do you pull with that amount of intensity and work per set and still recover from it, and why are you not really doing eccentric reps? I am technically doing the eccentrics because I'm holding onto the bar, so there is some eccentric loading, but I am losing a very, very large amount of the eccentric rep. To put this very simply, and I find it interesting that people will say, oh, well, you know, it's just not going to help you with hypertrophy. A lot of guys, you guys can argue all day long about the fact that my delts and stuff are underdeveloped. And I don't look as big as I actually am from the front on camera. And then when people meet me in person, they freak out, like Big J, Matt Ogus. All these people can vouch for that. These are people who've met me in person. But I'm actually working very hard now to bring up my shoulders. My shoulders are actually getting more work than any other body part because I'm actually trying to correct that imbalance. So I need wider delts and a bigger shoulder girdle just in general to help with that. But I mean, I'm definitely a good sized guy. And when you guys look at all of the training clips of the deadlift and you can see me training from behind, my whole posterior chain and back is pretty tremendously developed. There aren't many guys on YouTube with more back and posterior chain development than me. They're out there, but they're the exception, not the norm. So I clearly have hypertrophy there. And it's ironic that the exercise that I'm using to build most of that is the one that people are like, oh, you're not doing eccentric reps. So let's cover a couple things there. In terms of actual hypertrophy, I'm not saying eccentric reps cannot be a useful tool for hypertrophy, but they are absolutely not necessary. There are plenty of top coaches in the world. We don't need to look at bodybuilders because bodybuilders don't always know what they're talking about. Bodybuilding is about genetics and drugs, not always training knowledge. You go look at some of the top coaches in the world, like Glenn Pendlay. Glenn Pendlay, when he wants to bulk his athletes up, he puts them on heavy explosive concentric only training. And that's something that he advocates of, you know, fairly high workload, high volume, explosive training and not worrying about the eccentrics at all. So he'll do a lot of freaking Pendlay rows, deadlifts, power cleans, push presses, things like that to bulk them up without really focusing on the eccentric rep, mainly just doing the explosive concentrics with enough volume. And I don't want to appeal to authority here, but let's be realistic. No one on YouTube probably knows as much about training and coaching as someone like Glenn Pendlay. I don't, you don't, no one else on YouTube does. Johnny Candido doesn't. Let's just face the facts there. He doesn't believe eccentrics are really necessary, and the issue we come into with things like the deadlift, when you're deadlifting, the deadlift is a very difficult exercise to recover from. It is extremely taxing to your body. The eccentric rep is the most taxing portion in terms of recovery, soreness, things like that on the deadlift. By focusing on the concentric reps and not the eccentrics, I'm able to recover probably 3 times faster as a result of that. And what that lets me do is, okay, maybe I'm not getting 100% of the stimulation I could from one workout because I'm skipping the eccentrics. I might only be getting 80% because keep in mind, by not doing the eccentrics, I can do more actual reps. A slow eccentric is going to cut down the amount of total workload you can do. And the thing is, you're doing less work on an eccentric. A slow eccentric rep recruits far less muscle fibers than an explosive concentric does with the same weight. That's what people don't understand. That's why you're stronger on the eccentric. It's easier to do. But it also causes the most issues with recovery, peripheral nervous system recovery, micro tearing of the connective tissue, stuff that takes time to heal and recover from. So that is one of the tools that I'm using that is allowing me to deadlift with that amount of intensity 3 times a week. That is a massive factor there by skipping the eccentrics. And the other thing is, because the eccentric rep is harder to recover from, it's something to consider chopping out of the deadlift. But the other thing is, eccentric reps are generally the easiest way to get hurt on the deadlift. If you want to have the highest injury rate on a deadlift, start trying to do slow eccentrics on them. And I'm not talking about a Romanian deadlift. I'm talking about the standard conventional deadlift. And if you really want to do an eccentric focused deadlift because you want to try to get some extra hypertrophy benefits from the eccentrics, that's why Romanian deadlifts were invented. The Romanian deadlift is an eccentric based deadlift. It is a deadlift that lets you get a stretch reflex and put a heavy eccentric loading on the body, and it's far, far safer to do it on. So there's a completely different tool for it that's better than doing your regular deadlifts if you want an eccentric focus. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go. Oh, Mount Biceps.